Our whole universe was in a hot, dense state that nearly 14 billion years ago expansion started. Wait, the earth began to cool, the autotrophs began to drool, Neanderthals developed tools, we built a wall. We built the pyramids, math, science, history, unraveling the mystery that all started with a big bang. Hey!
Hello everyone, and welcome to this video commentary on an episode of The Big Bang Theory. Before we continue with the actual commentary, let's just do some housekeeping. Firstly, for those who know me from my blog, video content will not be replacing regular written content, and I'm still working on my next post. However, if you enjoy this video, let me know and I'll continue to make videos alongside the regular blog stuff. Also, bear in mind that this is the first video of any kind that I've ever made, so if my voice sounds a bit weird, if I'm talking too quickly, then I can only apologise. As for the details of this specific video, people who know me know that I'm a little bit of a comedy TV nerd, and they'll also know that I don't particularly hold the Big Bang Theory in very high regard. To be precise, I think it's a load of shit. So why even make something like this? If I don't want to watch the show, surely I should just not watch it and go on recommending much better comedy shows. And I think that that's sort of missing the point, because although a lot of people think that the Big Bang Theory is sort of a dead horse now, we all know it's bad, it still racks up 15 million viewers per episode, and that's on its 11th season. And of course the spin-off show, Young Sheldon, has just been renewed for a second season. So there's no doubt that it's still relevant to a lot of people. And also, it's very easy to hate on the Big Bang Theory. Everyone knows all the memes and all the reasons why they think it's not very good. The over-reliance on catchphrases, the disregard for nerd culture. But it's more difficult, as well as more worthwhile, to pin down why the comedy in this show doesn't really work, and what really isn't very good about it. In order to be fair to the show, the episode I've chosen to comment on here is one of the best, at least according to the fans. It appears on several top 10 lists and it has a 9.1 out of 10 score on IMDb. So what I want you to do now is go to another tab and find a place to play Series 3, Episode 22, The Staircase Implementation. I use the Netflix version that's on Netflix UK, so if you want to use that one as well, I don't think it'll make a big difference, but that's what I used. In a moment, you're going to hear a beep, and when that beep happens, press play on the episode so that we're synced up. If you hear another beep, and I'm just going to play it as an example now, like this, then pause, and I'll do a bit of talking. If you hear two beeps, like this, then switch back to the tab that you're playing this video on, because I'll be showing some more visual stuff to aid with my arguments. Now, without further ado, let's begin. Alright, It's worth just talking a little bit about the acting in the show, because I don't like ragging on individual or specific actors, but none of the acting is particularly good. And I think in that scene, you get a bit of a sense of it. Lines are quite over-delivered, which is why all those Big Bang Theory, without the laugh track, things sound quite uncanny. It's not just the pauses between each joke, it's actually the delivery that seems like it's very much to an audience. Obviously, that's because this is a multi-camera sitcom, and other sitcoms sound weird when you take the laugh track away as well. But I think the reason why this one has that sort of weird inconsistency is because the jokes aren't really there to prop it up. So all those little bits of bad acting become much more noticeable. I'm also just going to point out now that I'm not going to go through each and every single joke telling you which one's good and which one's bad. Instead, I'm just going to pinpoint moments which are going to build up into a larger argument. So, for example, in that 1 minute and 20 seconds that you've just seen, there were some jokes that I liked, like Penny's response to the door knock after she's heard the argument. And there were some jokes that just weren't there, like when the audience laughs because she just says the words bat crap crazy. But I'm not going to go through every single joke because that'll take too long and would be a bit of a pointless endeavour, and I'd end up repeating myself a lot. So, that was the cold open. If you don't know what a cold open is, then what they are basically one-off jokes, sometimes connected, sometimes not connected, from the main story of the episode that come in before the title sequence starts. So that was an example of a really bad cold open, but cold opens can be really funny. They can be the highlight of the episode. And the reason why good cold opens work is worth considering. The crucial thing is that they should roll to the credits on their strongest joke. Or if not their strongest joke, then still a really funny joke. For example, one of the most famous cold opens is the US office's fire drill cold open. And that ends with Stanley having a heart attack and Michael yelling,
"Not die! Stanley! Stanley, you will not die! Stanley! Stanley! Barack is president! You are black, Stanley!"
And it's just a really great joke, and it cuts to the credits at exactly the right time. It's perfect. And to give another example, the cold open for the Friends episode, the one where no one is ready, ends on a really great joke, but it also introduces a key running gag.
Hey, Ross. Want some cider?
No. So, let's see, you're pretty close, huh? Makeup's on, hair's done.
Yeah, I just have to get dressed.
Yay. And that takes, what, just 6 or 7 minutes?
Yeah, once I figure out what I'm wearing.
Glass of fat?
By far, the king of cold opens in sitcoms is Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which also has a really punchy opening theme song that underscores any one-liner perfectly, like a modern-day ba-dum-tsh. So here's one example of that.
Wait for it. Wait for it. 9:01. Amy Santiago is officially late for the first time ever. All right, let's do this. Who's got theories?
Alarm didn't go off.
All 3 alarms, all with battery backup? Come on, who wants to take this seriously?
Ooh, she was taken in her sleep.
That's what I'm talking about. Super dark, Boyle, but way more plausible than the Sarge's idiotic alarm clock theory.
I bet she tucked herself into bed too tight and got stuck.
Maybe she fell into another dimension where she's interesting.
It's 9 a.m. Why is no one working?
Amy Santiago is a few minutes late, and we're all trying to guess why.
I like to play. I'd say she's in line at the bank. This is fun.
It is fun, but you're all wrong. She clearly slipped through a subway grate and is having terrible sex with a mole man. There she is, Amy. Where have you been? We've been worried sick. Do you care to explain yourself?
I'm just 70 seconds late. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it.
Santiago, you will tell us, and you will tell us now.
There was a problem at the bank.
Hot damn!
But this episode of The Big Bang Theory ends its cold open on the joke, "That should have been my first clue." So you sort of see what they're trying to do here. Like the fact they're trying to bring in a running joke, although it's actually only repeated once more in the episode. But the joke isn't really a great one to end it on because that sort of was his first clue. It doesn't quite make sense, and it's not really like the punchline to anything. See, if I were the editor of this episode, I would have put the intro title right after "Can I sleep at yours tonight?" And that makes a joke where there wasn't one before, but it's also a lot punchier, I think, and it works a lot better.
Screw the roommate agreement. No, you don't screw the roommate agreement. The roommate agreement screws you. You know what? Go to hell and set their thermostat. I don't have to go to hell. It's 73 degrees. I'm there already.
Who is it?
Leonard.
Hang on.
Can I sleep on your couch tonight?
Our whole universe was in a hot damn.
So none of the lines that they just said were actually jokes, except maybe the last line. It makes sense now because it's their cap-off, a sort of punchline to a comedic conversation. Like, the general theme of the conversation was comedic, and so it makes sense to laugh at the release, the final line. But the audience just sort of laughs throughout, even when there are no jokes. And I think that's kind of a running theme you might see throughout this episode and throughout other episodes of The Big Bang Theory, and it's something that I'll get to in a little bit. See, there, they seem to just laugh at him getting out of the lift. I've watched that quite a few times, and I'm not quite sure what they're laughing so much at. Is it the way he turns around? Is it the way he looks so exasperated? I just don't really get what they're laughing at. So the initial reveal of that guy behind the door is a fine sight/shock gag, but then at 2 minutes and 54 seconds, the audience laughs that the black guy wearing a dress thinks Sheldon is the crazy one, and the comedy there just gets a little bit uncomfortable. And once again, they laugh at pretty much the same joke. And again, it's a little bit uncomfortable. I just want to quickly say before we go on that Jim Parsons has won a bunch of Emmys for The Big Bang Theory, and I actually think he's pretty good. He's a pretty funny, physical performer. He has a good sense of the character. I mean, Sheldon is annoying, and we'll get to why he doesn't really work for me later, but I don't think I'm going to blame this on Parsons. The audience laughs for way too long there. I mean, this is just something that I picked up on. The joke isn't really strong enough to support this laugh. The apartment is kind of huge and big and looks pretty nice, but the audience thinks this is hysterical. When making a multi-camera sitcom with a laugh track, that's fine, but laughs have to be proportional to the joke, and here it really isn't, and it feels a bit strange. And again, okay, there isn't really a joke here. The joke here is that Sheldon has a specific seat, but it gets a huge laugh from the audience. And you might be thinking, if you've never seen the show, why is that? Well, that's because this is one of the Big Bang Theory's many running gags. It's slightly less famous than Bazinga, but it's still repeated enough for there to be a 25-minute supercut compilation video of it on YouTube. So let's talk for a minute about running jokes. But first, let's just set some ground rules for what makes a good running joke. And these aren't set in stone, but they're really good things to follow if you're trying to write a sitcom. So the first is that the joke should be funny the first time. Right? That seems pretty simple, but the joke has to really work the first time for it to deserve repetition. And second is each time the joke is repeated, it should be done so in a different way. So obviously, the show with the best running gags on TV is Arrested Development. We all know the chicken dance. But let's look at an example from the controversial Series 4, and this running joke I'm just going to call The Sound of Silence. So the first two times is basically the same gag. Job gets depressed over something happy, but the situation and Will Arnett are funny enough to excuse it the second time.
Got my yes.
And Job
I got that
realized
big
there
yes.
was finally nothing standing in the way of a loving, committed relationship with Anne.
My life is a fallacy.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you.
Job was surrounded by unconditional love from a family for the first time in his life.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
I've made a huge mistake.
To talk with you again.
The third time, the situation is reversed because Job should be unhappy, but in the end the music is cut off. The joke is enforced enough by the first two occasions to be implied by this point.
It was in that pivotal moment that Job realized he had lost his fiancée, his career, his family, and his entourage.
I have no one in my life who cares for me.
Hello, dark.
Great, and now my boss is on my ass.
The next time it happens, Tony Wonder, instead of Job, is the recipient of the Sound of Silence gag, which enforces their connection, but is also just a bit unexpected.
Poor guy doesn't realize I'm about to destroy our life.
Our life.
I mean destroy our life with Job. I'm going to destroy our life, my life, with Job. Destroy my life with Job.
Darkness, my old friend.
Destroy my life with Job.
Then finally, the gag comes to a perfect conclusion with the mariachi version, which also has a neat fourth wall break.
Yes, I have a son, and his father's a magician.
Oh, it's not us.
But hey, I see the complaint. That's a bit unfair. Arrested Development is way more structured and a really different kind of comedy than The Big Bang Theory. So I think to really look at something more comparable, let's find an example of a running joke from Friends. The most famous running joke in Friends is, of course, "How you doing?" by Joey. First off, the joke itself is kind of funny. Joey's lame pickup tactics that always seem to work. Second, it's not really that overused. It's only actually used 17 times over 236 episodes. What's more is that almost every time it's used, it's a different gag. There's the fake Joey's "How are you doing?"
Who the hell are you?
I'm Joey. How are you doing?
There's him saying it in his sleep.
How you doing?
Signing it through the window.
How you doing?
To Chandler.
How you doing?
To himself.
Yeah, how you doing? Yeah.
To food.
How you doing?
And a bunch more. So, what about The Big Bang Theory? Well, let's look at their most famous running gag, Bazinga.
And B, when I do kid, you will know it by my use of the word bazinga.
First off, the overall actual gag isn't really that funny. Instead of a punchline, Sheldon can just say bazinga because he doesn't really get comedy. I guess it's kind of funny how lame Sheldon's classic pranks are, but the punchline itself, the running joke, is just a stupid word that's made up and doesn't make any sense. The problem here really is that the joke never changes. Sheldon lies, he says bazinga. There's one bit where he goes, "The bazinga was implied." But that's the only example I could find of the joke evolving throughout the series. The least they could have done is had another character use bazinga on Sheldon or something, and maybe they've done that in a later episode, but in any of the supercuts or compilation videos I've seen, I couldn't find anything like that. Anyway, back to this episode. Here, the joke isn't funny, but it's a running gag, so it gets a laugh anyway, even though nothing is done to change or evolve the joke that Sheldon likes a specific seat. And I just think this is really, really lazy. And it's an example of bad script writing that the writers can just put in a running joke and get a laugh anyway. Once again, the speech that Sheldon gives here is actually nearly identical to the one from the episode where the gag is first introduced. But it still gets a big laugh because I guess the audience here loves repetition. So let's go on to our next topic here, which is character believability. And it's time to talk about the Sheldon in the room. Sheldon is, of course, a nerd, and a socially awkward nerd at that. And much of the humour comes from his lack of understanding of the world that is played up for comic effect. It's funny that he asks these questions because that's not what a normal person would ask. And I guess that's fine in principle. Comedy lives on exaggerating characters beyond the norm. And normally, as series go on, characters get more and more exaggerated. And this process is known as flanderization. But that doesn't really mean that they get less funny. Joey trying to speak French is stupider than any real person.
Je m'appelle Claude.
Je te call blue.
No! Okay, maybe if we just break it down. Okay, let's try it one syllable at a time. Okay, so repeat after me. Je m'appelle.
Pelle.
Great. Okay, faster. Je m'appelle.
Pelle.
Je m'appelle.
Me poupou.
But at least the joke is still kind of funny. And it does, like the running jokes we talked about previously, evolve throughout the episode.
From 1 to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Eh? Blue, blah, flu, flank.
Good job.
Thank you.
Whenever you're ready, Joey.
Right. J'ai boubou, Claude. Slepou, le, la, lou, blah, blue.
I'm sorry, what's going on?
Dude, come on, French it up.
Joey, do you speak French?
Tout le s'more. Blue, 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 blah, fou.
You know what? I think this audition is over.
Excuse me. I am Regine Philange. I was passing by when I heard this man speaking the regional dialect of my French town of Estée Lauder.
You really think this man is speaking French?
Écoutez, je vais vous dire la vérité. C'est mon petit frère. Il est un peu retardé. Alors, si vous pouviez jouer le jeu avec lui.
Good job, little buddy. That was some really good French. But I think we're going to go with someone else for the part.
Oh, yeah. All right. But my French was good?
It was great.
Merci, au revoir.
Yeah, tout le fruit.
So jokes can withstand flanderization if they're good enough, but issues like this are why series tend to drop in quality over a long run. It's much funnier in the early seasons of Friends, when Joey is believably dumb, than when it's absurdly dumb. Characters can get away with flanderization. Take, for example, the cast of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which has gotten way crazier over the 12 seasons the show has been on the air, in order to facilitate the more outlandish plots. But the series isn't really about the characters. They never grow or change as people throughout the course of the show. They just get weirder, which is fine, because the comedic direction of the show changes with them. Episodes like The Gang Hits the Slopes would never have happened in Series 1. Sheldon in The Big Bang Theory, however, starts flanderized. I've met nerds, and I've met people with Asperger's, which, by the way, Sheldon doesn't canonically have, and none of them are like this. Sheldon is a completely unrelatable, unbelievable character, and that's really death to a TV show character, at least in my opinion. Individual jokes can be saved from this, as we see with Joey's efforts to learn French, but it makes it difficult for the lesser jokes to land. His questions aren't that funny because it's not, oh wow, a person like this would never normally say this. This is exactly what this kind of person would say, but this person doesn't and will never exist. You'll keep seeing this as we go on, and you'll also notice he's a bit of a prick, so he hasn't even got that going for him. This joke is fine, but once again, it goes on a little bit too long. It should really have been cut after Sheldon says, "I don't understand." Let me play that for you.
Asked. You have won the right to see your room. Huzzah.
Is this it?
No, this is my room. People don't go in my room.
So where do you sleep?
I don't understand.
Making a joke.
Do you do this often?
On occasion.
And I just think it's a bit funnier. So here again is a really good example of the whole flanderization thing. The initial setup is quite funny, the traditional awkward roommate comedy, and Sheldon's line after barging in is kind of funny because it's only just unrealistic. But then he brings out the checklist and it's just too weird. Look, it's absurdist levels of humour, which is fine, but it feels out of place in a multi-camera sitcom like this, which doesn't really aspire to absurdity in any other character or many other moments. And then Sheldon slut shames a woman. There's already a really good video on the misogyny of the Big Bang Theory, so I won't go into it here, but there is a link to that video in the description. So here the audience laugh at three guys playing Mario Kart Double Dash. But why? There's a joke to be made about them getting way too into it, but the audience starts laughing at the reveal. And I think this is actually why a lot of people on the internet specifically don't like the Big Bang Theory, especially people who might be found playing Mario Kart, like me. It's that the show, or maybe more specifically in this case, the audience, seem to make fun of nerd culture. The audience isn't laughing at a joke here, just at the godforsaken idea of grown men playing Mario Kart. While on this subject, a little note about laugh tracks. I don't hate them on principle, and I get why they're used. A lot of shows I love have laugh tracks, and I really wouldn't have it any other way. But come on, the audience has to be laughing at something, or it's just obnoxious, and often it's really telling, like in this case. Again, there's another video about this, and link in the description again. As you might be able to tell, I'm sort of more focused on the comedy aspect, but Jesus Christ, everyone in the show is just such a fucking dick to one another. And I really don't see the joy in watching four guys be absolutely vitriolic to... Oh wait, sorry, I watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, never mind. By the way, I've pretty much said my piece now, so enjoy the last few decent minutes of this episode, and I'll catch up with you at the end. So, despite everything I've said, that wasn't an awful episode of television. I get why it's remembered as one of the best. But if anything, I think that proves my point rather than disproves it. Because even when the show is at its best, all of its trademark flaws still appear. The jokes often aren't as funny as they could be, or the audience just laughs when there isn't a joke. The running jokes are really poor, relying on recognition rather than comedy. The characters are way too over the top, and the show has just as much contempt for its characters as they have for each other. I know that going after The Big Bang Theory seems old hat by now, but it is still one of the biggest comedies on US television, and the spin-off has just gotten renewed for a second season. Instead of making The Big Bang Theory into another meme, instead of just viewing The Big Bang Theory as a bit of a meme, we should take a serious look at it and point out its flaws, learn from them, and really make sure we don't have to settle for less in our TV comedy. Bazinga. If you liked that video, be sure to check out my blog, toatalireviews.wordpress.com, and if you liked that video, make sure to check out my blog, toatalireviews.wordpress.com, where I talk about a bunch of films, TV shows, and video games, and often write stupidly long posts about them. If you didn't like it, please leave a comment and tell me why. I'm always happy to have a discussion about comedy. Thanks for watching.